Commander Zrox of the Gralthian Armada pressed all 6 appendages against the control panel, his compound eyes rapidly scanning the tactical display. The human vessel, small, primitive, and apparently suicidal, had just executed a maneuver that defied both physics and common sense. "Would someone please explain to me," Zrox said with exaggerated patience, "why that microscopic collection of metal and plastic is turning toward us instead of away from us?" His voice rose slightly at the end, causing several junior officers to retract their sensory stalks. Lieutenant Plex, newly promoted and still optimistic about career advancement despite serving under the notoriously demanding Zrox, cleared her throat sacs. Her emerald carapace gleamed under the harsh bridge lighting as she straightened to her full height, a full foot shorter than the commander, but impressive nonetheless. "Perhaps their navigation systems have malfunctioned, Commander," she suggested, her voice modulated carefully to convey respectful inquiry rather than unwelcome speculation. Plex had witnessed too many officers demoted for the latter. "Ah yes, how convenient." Zrox's primary mandibles clicked twice in the gesture that most junior officers had learned to dread. "The last surviving human vessel in this sector has suddenly developed a malfunction that sends it directly toward the largest armada in Gralthian history." His exoskeleton clicked with annoyance, plates shifting to release a subtle cloud of pheromones that filled the bridge with the unmistakable scent of superior questioning subordinates' intelligence. "Because that makes perfect sense. Next, you will suggest their weapons accidentally armed themselves, and their communication system is inadvertently broadcasting threats." The tactical officer, Vryn, who had survived 3 commanders and therefore feared nothing, including death, shifted his weathered carapace forward. Unlike the other officers with their polished shells and pristine uniforms, Vryn's exoskeleton bore the microscopic scars of 17 major battles. The left side of his thorax plate had been replaced after the Rigelian confrontation, giving him a slightly asymmetrical appearance that most Gralthians found disturbing, but which Zrox secretly appreciated. It was a visible reminder of experience. "Sir," Vryn began, his voice carrying the distinctive rasp of someone who had inhaled too much plasma smoke during the Centauri campaign, "human psychology suggests they might be employing what they call a bluff, pretending to possess greater strength than they actually do." He manipulated the tactical display with practiced precision, highlighting the human vessel's erratic approach vector. Their historical records are filled with instances where they have used psychological warfare when conventional tactics failed. Zrox swiveled his eye stalks toward Vryn, the membranes around them constricting to focus his vision into what the crew had nicknamed his death gaze. "A bluff? Against US?" He gestured dramatically at the view screen that displayed the thousands of Gralthian vessels surrounding the lone human ship, his secondary appendages splaying in a cultural gesture that signified incredulity bordering on cosmic disbelief. What exactly are they bluffing with? Their remarkable ability to be destroyed more spectacularly than the other humans? Their exceptional talent for becoming space debris? Perhaps they believe their primitive ship will somehow transform into something threatening if they wish hard enough. The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. The human vessel continued its inexplicable course. "Open a communication channel," Zrox finally ordered. "Let's hear what madness they're spouting before we obliterate them." Communications Officer Quell tapped several controls. "Channel open, Commander." Zrox straightened to his full 8 feet, causing his ceremonial armor to glitter impressively under the bridge lights. "Attention, human vessel. This is Commander Zrox of the Gralthian Armada. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and apparently out of your primitive minds. Explain your suicidal approach before we vaporize you." There was a pause, then a human face appeared on screen. The creature had only 2 eyes, no protective exoskeleton, and far too many teeth showing in what Zrox's cultural briefing identified as a smile. "Disturbing." "Hello there," the human said cheerfully. "Captain Jack Thornton of the Earth Vessel Persistence. Lovely armada you have got. Really impressive. Mind if I ask how much you paid for it?" Zrox blinked all 4 eyelids in confusion. "What? Your armada," the human repeated, gesturing vaguely. "Couldn't have been cheap. All those ships, all that firepower, must have cost a fortune." The might of the Gralthian Empire is beyond your comprehension, human. Zrox replied stiffly. Oh, I can comprehend large numbers just fine, Thornton said, still smiling. For instance, I can comprehend exactly how many antimatter warheads my little ship is currently carrying, and exactly how big a bang they will make when detonated inside your formation. The bridge erupted in chittering whispers. Scan them. Zrox ordered. Vrin's appendages flew over the controls. Scanning, sir. There was a pause. Sir, they appear to be jamming our scans? Impossible. Zrox slammed a claw down. Their technology is inferior. Nevertheless, Vrin replied, we cannot penetrate their shields to determine their weapons' capability. Thornton's smile widened. Having trouble with your scanners? That's unfortunate. Anyway, as I was saying, enough. Zrox interrupted. You expect me to believe that your single vessel poses a threat to our entire armada? You humans truly are delusional. Oh, I don't expect you to believe anything, Thornton said pleasantly. That's the beauty of this situation. You don't have to believe me. You just have to ask yourself one question. What if I'm telling the truth? Zrox felt an uncomfortable sensation in his digestion sacs. The human had a point. If there was even a small chance, sir, Plex whispered, protocol suggests that when facing an unknown threat, I know the protocol. Zrox snapped. Thornton examined his fingernails. Such fragile, useless appendages, Zrox thought, and continued conversationally. You know, Commander, there's something you Gralthians never understood about us humans. And what is that? Zrox asked despite himself. We are really, really good at looking weak, right, until the moment we are not. The tactical display beeped urgently. Vrin's appendages trembled as he reported, Sir, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessel. And, sir, there are now readings suggesting multiple quantum fluctuations within our formation. Zrox felt his blood run cold. What? How? Unknown, sir. They weren't there a moment ago. On screen, Thornton's smile never wavered. Tell me, Commander, have you ever heard of quantum entanglement mines? 3 cycles earlier, in a different part of space, Captain Jack Thornton was having a much worse day. What had begun as a routine patrol of the recently established colonial outposts in the Tau Ceti system had rapidly deteriorated into a desperate fight for survival. The bridge of the Persistence, normally an orderly environment of soft beeping consoles and quiet efficiency, now resembled the interior of a washing machine filled with loose tools. Emergency lighting cast everything in an ominous red glow, punctuated by the staccato flash of warning indicators. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry mingled with a metallic taste of fear. Status report. Thornton shouted over the blaring alarms as the bridge shuddered under another hit. A ceiling panel crashed down just meters from his command chair, showering sparks across the tactical display. His first officer, Commander Nadine Parker, clung to her console as the ship rocked. A thin trickle of blood ran from a cut above her right eyebrow, where she'd connected with her station during the initial attack. Despite this, her voice remained steady, a quality Thornton had always admired about Parker, even when she was telling him exactly how screwed they were. Not good, Captain. Hull integrity at 63% and dropping. Sections 12 through 14 are venting atmosphere. Emergency bulkheads holding for now. Weapons at 40% capacity, with port-side missile tubes completely offline. Engineering reports the main reactor is stable, but cooling systems are compromised. She paused to wipe blood from her eye. And the Gralthians are still jamming our distress signals. No one knows we are being slaughtered out here. Thornton grimaced. The surprise attack had caught the human fleet completely off guard. 6 ships lost already, and the Persistence was among the last still fighting. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong, tactical officer and resident pessimist, added helpfully, Sir, at current engagement parameters, we have approximately 18 minutes before we join our fallen comrades in the Great Void. Thank you for that inspiring assessment, Wong, Thornton replied dryly. Any suggestion that doesn't end with us being space debris? Wong's fingers danced across his console. Actually, sir, I might have something. It's unorthodox. Unorthodox is my middle name, Lieutenant. I thought it was Danger, Parker muttered. That's my confirmation name. Thornton shot back with a grin that belied the dire situation. What have you got, Wong? Wong brought up a tactical display. The Gralthians have us outgunned, but their formation has one weakness. They are too perfect. Look at the symmetry, the precision. Every ship exactly where tactical doctrine says it should be. Thornton studied the display, meaning they are predictable. Exactly. And predictable means exploitable. Wang highlighted a section of the display. I've been analyzing their attack patterns. There's a mathematical precision to their movements. If we could get close enough to their command ship, here, I think we could deploy the QEMS. Parker's eyes widened. The quantum entanglement mining system? That's still experimental, and currently our only option that doesn't end with us being atomized. Wang countered. Thornton rubbed his chin. Remind me how QEMS works again? In small words, please. It's been a long day. Wang sighed. We deploy quantum entangled particles that can create linkages between points in space. Once entangled, we can place conventional mines at our end of the entanglement, and they will affect whatever's at the other end. So we could potentially place explosives throughout their fleet without actually having to go there. In theory, yes. But we need to get close enough to deploy the initial entanglement field. And the system has never been tested in combat. Another blast rocked the ship. The lights flickered. Shields at 42% called out Ensign Rivera from operations. Thornton made his decision. Well, today's as good a day as any for a field test. Set course for the Gralthian command ship. Parker looked alarmed. Sir, that's suicidal. So is sitting here waiting to be picked off. Thornton's expression hardened. The Gralthians attacked without provocation or warning. They have destroyed 6 of our ships and killed thousands of our people. If we're going down, we are taking as many of them with us as possible. Wang nodded grimly. The QEMS will need approximately 5 minutes to establish a stable entanglement field once we are in range. The quantum particles need time to achieve resonance and propagate through their fleet. Can we survive 5 minutes in the heart of their formation? Thornton asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it anyway. Wang's fingers danced across his console, running simulation after simulation. Each one ended the same way, with the persistence reduced to its component atoms. He looked up, his expression a mixture of resignation and determination. Probably not, Wang admitted. Based on their current weapons capability and our deteriorating shields, we have maybe 2 minutes before they breach our hull integrity completely. 3 if we are exceptionally lucky. Thornton ran a hand through his hair, leaving it standing in sweat-slicked spikes. So we need an extra 2 to 3 minutes of survival time that physics says we don't have. Precisely. Wang's expression shifted suddenly, the way it always did when his remarkable mind made connections others couldn't see. But I have an idea about that too. Something that relies not on physics, but on psychology. Parker leaned forward. I know that look. What are you thinking, Marcus? Wang's fingers activated a secondary display. The Gralthians are, above all else, methodical. Their entire culture is built around predictability and procedure. Their military doctrine hasn't changed in over 200 years. And Thornton prompted, and that means they have blind spots. Big ones. Wang's eyes gleamed with the light of inspiration. What if we could make them see something that isn't there? Or rather, make them see what they expect to see, while we do something entirely different. Back in the present moment, Commander Zrox was experiencing what humans might call a severe case of indigestion. Except in Gralthians, it was more commonly associated with existential dread. Quantum entanglement mines? Zrox repeated. There's no such thing. On screen, Captain Thornton shrugged. Well, there wasn't until recently. Amazing what humans can come up with when properly motivated. Like, say, when an alien armada destroys 6 of their ships without warning. Bryn's voice shook slightly. Sir, I have completed a more detailed scan of the quantum fluctuations. They appear to be growing in intensity, and they're appearing exactly at our weak points, shield generators, weapon systems, propulsion nodes. Zrox felt his exoskeleton tighten with stress. That's impossible. They couldn't know our weak points. Pattern recognition, Thornton said casually. Your ships are beautifully designed, but once you have seen one Gralthian cruiser, you have pretty much seen them all. Did no one ever suggest mixing up your designs a bit? Adding some variation? Lieutenant Plex leaned in to whisper urgently. Commander, if those are indeed quantum-linked explosives, a single detonation could trigger a chain reaction throughout our entire formation. He's bluffing. Zrox insisted, but with less conviction than before. Maybe, Thornton agreed. But here's the thing about quantum entanglement. Once the particles are linked, distance becomes irrelevant. Those minds? They're not on my ship. They're already inside yours. The tactical display erupted with new warnings as more quantum fluctuations appeared throughout the Armada. Sir, Vryn called out. Fluctuations now detected in over 300 of our vessels, including this one. Zrox felt the command chair suddenly become very uncomfortable. This is some sort of trick, he muttered. Not a trick, Thornton said, his casual demeanor fading into something harder. Science. And unlike you, we don't use it just to conquer. We use it to survive. His eyes narrowed. Now, here's what's going to happen. Your Armada will withdraw from this sector immediately. You will cease all hostilities against human vessels and colonies. And you will agree to diplomatic talks to establish a formal peace treaty. Or what? Zrox challenged, despite the growing evidence that he was, as humans might say, completely screwed. Or, I transmit the detonation sequence. And we all get to experience what happens when quantum-entangled antimatter simultaneously explodes throughout your entire fleet. Thornton's smile returned, but it no longer reached his eyes. I imagine the light show would be visible from several star systems away. Quell, the communications officer, suddenly reported, Sir, we are receiving reports from multiple ships. They're detecting the same quantum fluctuations. The fleet commanders are requesting instructions. Zrox hesitated. Everything in his training told him this had to be a bluff. One small human ship couldn't possibly threaten the mighty Gralthian Armada. And yet perhaps, Plex suggested delicately, we should consider the humans' terms, at least until we can assess the validity of this threat. Before Zrox could respond, Vryn called out, Sir, the quantum fluctuations are intensifying. Energy readings are spiking. On screen, Thornton held up what appeared to be a small device. This is the detonator. I'm starting the countdown now. You have 30 seconds to order your fleet to withdraw. This is outrageous. Zrox sputtered. You expect me to retreat based on an unverified threat. 25 seconds. Thornton replied calmly that Vryn's voice was now distinctly panicked. Sir, the fluctuations have spread to over 500 vessels. Whatever this is, it's real. 20 seconds. Quell added, Sir, Admiral Crux is demanding to know what's happening. The entire command staff is detecting these anomalies. 15 seconds. Zrox felt the weight of command pressing down on his exoskeleton. If he called the humans bluff and was wrong, he would be responsible for the greatest military disaster in Gralthian history. If he retreated and the human was bluffing, 10 seconds. Sir, Plex pleaded, we must decide. 5 seconds. Hold, Zrox finally shouted. Hold, human, Captain Thornton, stop your countdown. Thornton's finger hovered over the device. I'm listening. Zrox swallowed his pride, along with a significant amount of digestive fluid. We'll order the fleet to withdraw and cease hostilities. And the diplomatic talks. Yes, fine. Diplomatic talks. Just stop whatever you are doing. Thornton studied him for a moment, then nodded. A wise decision, Commander. He set down the device. I will transmit coordinates for the initial diplomatic meeting. I suggest you bring your best negotiators. Humans can be quite demanding when they have been wronged. Zrox sagged in his command chair as Thornton's transmission ended. Send a withdrawal order to all ships, he said hollowly. Immediately, as Zrox sagged in his command chair, the enormity of what had just transpired began to sink in. His entire career, 300 cycles of flawless service to the Gralthian Empire, now tarnished by this humiliation. The triumphant conquest that was to have been his crowning achievement had turned into a retreat ordered under duress from a single human vessel. Send the withdrawal order to all ships, he said hollowly. Immediately, Communications Officer Quell's appendages trembled slightly as she transmitted the order, not from fear, but from the barely suppressed shock rippling through the entire bridge crew. No Gralthian commander had ordered a full withdrawal in 7 generations. There would be repercussions, severe ones, as the bridge crew scrambled to comply with orders they never imagined giving. Vryn studied his instruments with growing perplexity. His weathered face plates shifted in the Gralthian expression of professional curiosity. "Sir, the quantum fluctuations are dissipating," he reported, his voice carrying an unusual note of confusion that Zrox had rarely heard from his experienced tactical officer. "Of course they are," Zrox muttered, his primary stomach churning with humiliation and barely contained rage. He's getting what he wanted. Why maintain a threat when your enemy has already capitulated? "But sir," Vryn persisted, manipulating his console to display more detailed readings, "some of our sensors are now suggesting that the fluctuations might have been, well, not entirely what they appear to be." Zrox's eye stalks snapped up, his apathy instantly replaced by razor-sharp attention. "Explain." The single word carried the weight of both command and dangerous hope. Vryn's appendages moved with practiced precision over his controls, bringing up comparative readings and analytical overlays. It's as if he struggled to find the words, his scientific training battling with what his instruments were telling him. It's as if they were real readings, but not of what the human claimed they were. The quantum signatures are inconsistent with weapons-grade antimatter. The decay pattern is wrong. The resonance frequencies don't match our weapons database. He looked up, his compound eyes reflecting the pulsing lights of his display. "Almost like we were tricked," Zrox finished, a terrible suspicion forming in his mind as pieces began falling into place. The human's confidence, the impossibility of their claims, the convenient sensor jamming that prevented detailed scans of their vessel. Plex shifted uncomfortably, her carapace plates clicking with nervousness. "Sir, even if that's true, the withdrawal orders have already been transmitted. The fleet is beginning to reposition." Zrox stared at the view screen where the small human vessel, the Persistence, now sat motionless, seemingly content to watch as the mighty Gralthian Armada began its shameful retreat. "Counter order," Zrox said suddenly, his voice hardening with renewed determination. "Tell the fleet to hold position." Quell turned in alarm. "Sir, but the human—" "Do it," Zrox snapped, rising from his command chair, "and open a channel to that vessel. Now." The bridge fell silent as the crew exchanged worried glances. Disobeying the human's demands could result in exactly the catastrophe they had just narrowly avoided, if the threat was real. But if it wasn't, channel open, Quell reported hesitantly. Zrox straightened to his full height, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the bridge lights. "Human vessel, this is Commander Zrox. Our sensors are detecting anomalies in your supposed quantum entanglement mines. Perhaps you would care to explain why the quantum signatures do not match known weapons profiles." For several agonizing moments, there was no response. Then Captain Thornton's face appeared on screen, his expression betraying nothing. "Commander Zrox," Thornton acknowledged coolly. "I suppose it was only a matter of time before your technicians started asking questions. The signatures don't match your weapons profiles because this technology doesn't exist in your databases. That's rather the point of an advanced weapons system, isn't it?" Vryn called out from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup within the human vessel." Zrox felt his confidence waver again. Was this another bluff? Or was the human actually preparing to detonate whatever weapons they possessed? The stakes of guessing wrong were catastrophically high. On screen, Thornton smiled faintly. "I'd reconsider that counter order if I were you, Commander. My finger is getting rather tired hovering over this button." Zrox's mind raced, calculating probabilities, weighing risks against his military experience and everything he knew about human psychology. In that moment, he made what he knew could be the final decision of his career or his life. "Resume withdrawal," he ordered quietly. "Full retreat, as originally commanded." As the transmission ended and the Armada once again began its withdrawal, Zrox turned to Vryn. "Continue analyzing those quantum signatures. I want a full report by the time we reach Gralthian space." "Yes, Commander," Vryn replied, already immersing himself in the data. Zrox settled back into his command chair, his external composure masking the storm of emotions within. "The humans have won this encounter," he said to no one in particular. "But a single victory does not win a war. And now, we know to look more closely at their claims." 3 days later, in a secure conference room aboard the neutral station Epsilon 7, Captain Jack Thornton straightened his dress uniform as he prepared to meet the Gralthian diplomatic team. The station, a marvel of multi-species engineering, featured environmental controls that could accommodate the atmospheric needs of 17 different sentient species. For this meeting, the temperature had been set slightly cooler than human preference, but warmer than Gralthian comfort. A small but deliberate diplomatic compromise. "Remember," Commander Parker murmured beside him, her own formal attire immaculate, "they will be looking for any sign of weakness or deception." The Gralthian cultural briefing said they consider direct eye contact a challenge, but avoiding it entirely is seen as submissive. Thornton nodded almost imperceptibly. "So maintain occasional eye contact, but don't stare them down." "Got it." He adjusted his collar. "Any word on who they are sending?" "Ambassador Drex will lead their delegation," Parker replied. Former military, decorated commander for the Orion conflict, converted to diplomatic service after losing a limb in battle. Supposed to be brilliant, but inflexible. And Commander Zrox? Conspicuously absent. Rumor has it he's been reassigned, pending an investigation into his handling of the encounter. Thornton frowned. "That's unfortunate. I'd rather negotiate with someone who respects what we are capable of, or what they think we are capable of," Parker corrected with a slight smile. Before Thornton could respond, the doors to the conference room slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the Gralthian delegation. Ambassador Drex led the group, his dark exoskeleton bearing the golden-laid patterns of high governmental authority. As Parker had mentioned, he was missing one of his secondary limbs, the prosthetic replacement gleaming with a metallic sheen quite different from his natural carapace. Thornton sat across from the stern-looking Gralthian official, who was flanked by aides and what appeared to be scientific advisors, judging by their distinctive blue carapace markings. "Captain Thornton," Drex began, his mandibles clicking in the formal Gralthian greeting. "I am Ambassador Drex, representing the interests of the Gralthian hegemony in these proceedings." "Ambassador," Thornton acknowledged with a respectful nod. "Thank you for agreeing to these talks. The United Earth government is eager to establish peaceful relations with your people." Indeed, Drex's compound eyes reflected the room's lighting in fractured patterns. "Although I must note that your definition of peaceful seems to include threatening to destroy an entire armada." Thornton smiled diplomatically. "I prefer to think of it as a forceful invitation to dialogue." One of the scientific advisors shifted position, leaning forward to whisper something to Drex. The ambassador nodded almost imperceptibly. "Before we begin these negotiations," Drex said stiffly, "my government requires clarification on a matter of technical significance." "I'm all ears," Thornton replied pleasantly, using an idiom that caused the Gralthian translator to momentarily struggle before converting it to an equivalent expression. "Our scientists have extensively analyzed the quantum phenomena that appeared throughout our fleet during your forceful invitation." Drex continued, the last two words carrying a tinge of sarcasm that the translator couldn't quite filter out. "Their findings are perplexing." "Oh," Thornton maintained a casual demeanor, though internally he was carefully measuring every word. This was the moment Wong had prepared him for, the inevitable questioning of their technological bluff. "Yes, it appears that while there were indeed quantum fluctuations present, they were not consistent with weapons or explosives of any kind." Drex's compound eyes fixed on Thornton accusingly. In fact, they most closely resembled the signature of a specialized scanning system, one using quantum entanglement not to deploy weapons, but to gather intelligence. Thornton maintained a neutral expression. "That's a fascinating theory." "It is not a theory," Drex countered. "It is the conclusion of our finest scientific minds. You did not have quantum entanglement minds. You had, at best, a sophisticated scanning system using similar principles. You were bluffing." Thornton leaned back in his chair. "Was I? Our analyses confirm it. Do they also confirm why your sensors detected those fluctuations in the first place? Why they appeared exactly at your vessel's weak points? Why they seemed to intensify on command?" Drex hesitated. "There are discrepancies in the data that remain unexplained." "Fascinating," Thornton said again. He leaned forward. "Here's something your scientists might want to consider. Quantum entanglement doesn't just connect particles. It connects possibilities." "What does that mean?" "It means," Thornton said carefully, "that what your sensors detected was real. Whether those were weapons that could have destroyed your fleet or simply sophisticated scanning devices that made it look like they could. Well, that's the beauty of quantum mechanics, isn't it? Both possibilities existed simultaneously until the moment of choice. Drex's mandibles clicked in agitation. This is nonsense. Scientific gibberish to disguise your deception. Is it? Thornton smiled. Then why are you sitting at this negotiation table instead of continuing your attack? The Gralthian had no answer for that. Thornton's expression softened slightly. Look, Ambassador, what matters isn't what might have happened. What matters is what happens next. Your people attacked ours without provocation. We defended ourselves with the tools we had available. Now we have a chance to ensure it never happens again. After a long moment, Drex nodded reluctantly. Very well. Let us proceed with the negotiations. Excellent. Thornton activated his datapad. First item, establishment of a demilitarized zone between our territories. Much later, as Thornton returned to the Persistence after a grueling but successful first round of negotiations, the ship's familiar environment welcomed him like an old friend. The damage from the battle had been partially repaired, though scorch marks and patched sections still testified to their close brush with annihilation. Commander Parker met him in the docking bay, her posture relaxed for the first time in days. Welcome back, Captain. Engineering reports the propulsion systems are back to 87% efficiency, and life support is fully stabilized. Good to hear something's working properly, Thornton replied, loosening his formal collar with a sigh of relief. The stiffness of diplomatic attire always made him feel like he was slowly being strangled. How's the crew? Morale has improved considerably since word spread about the negotiations, Parker said as they walked through the corridors. Crew members they passed offered salutes or respectful nods, some with barely concealed looks of admiration. Being the ship that faced down the entire Gralthian Armada has certain advantages. We have received 17 transfer requests from officers wanting to join the Persistence. Thornton chuckled. They might feel differently if they knew how close we actually came to being space dust. How'd it go with our arthropod friends? Parker asked, lowering her voice as they entered a less crowded section of the ship. About as well as can be expected when dealing with giant intelligent insects who recently tried to exterminate us, Thornton replied, running a hand through his hair. But they're negotiating in good faith, more or less. They have agreed to a provisional demilitarized zone and non-aggression protocols while we hammer out a more comprehensive treaty. Did they ask about the QEMS? Thornton grinned, the expression transforming his tired features into something more reminiscent of the confident captain who had bluffed their way out of destruction. But yes, their scientists have been working overtime trying to figure out exactly what happened. They are absolutely convinced we used some form of quantum technology. They just can't decide whether it was weapons or something else. And what did you tell them? The truth, more or less. Thornton laughed at Parker's skeptical expression, which clearly said she knew her captain's definition of truth could be remarkably flexible when the situation demanded it. What? I did. I told them that quantum entanglement connects possibilities. Parker shook her head as they walked toward the bridge. You realize that if they ever figure out that all we had was a modified sensor array and a lot of cleverly programmed phantom readings, they're going to be furious. By then, hopefully we will have a binding peace treaty in place. Thornton winked. Besides, they're still not 100% sure. That's the beauty of a really good bluff. Part of them will always wonder if it wasn't a bluff after all. As they entered the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Wong looked up from his station. Welcome back, Captain. How are our bug friends taking their humiliation? About as well as can be expected, Thornton replied. But I think they have learned an important lesson about humanity. Which is? Wong asked. Thornton looked out at the stars visible through the view screen, thinking about the moment when the Persistence had pivoted toward the Gralthian Armada, outnumbered, outgunned, but far from outmatched. That our greatest weapon has never been our technology, he said quietly. It's our capacity to make our enemies believe that we are more dangerous than we appear. Wong nodded thoughtfully. Still, it would have been nice if the QEMS actually worked the way we claimed it did. Thornton smiled enigmatically. Who says it doesn't? Parker and Wong exchanged confused glances. But the system was only designed to create sensor ghosts, Parker pointed out. The quantum entanglement aspect was barely functional for scanning, let alone weapons deployment. True. Thornton admitted. But research division has been making some interesting modifications based on the data we gathered during our little confrontation. And let's just say that by the time the Gralthians figure out what really happened this time, what they think was a bluff might not be a bluff anymore. He settled into his command chair, satisfied with the knowledge that sometimes the difference between a bluff and a promise was simply a matter of timing. Set course for Earth, he ordered. I think we have earned some shore leave. As the Persistence's engines hummed to life, somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a quantum particle shifted state. And somewhere else, impossibly distant yet instantaneously connected, another particle did exactly the same thing. Sometimes, understanding comes too late.